It's 6 o'clock. We'll call to order this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. To start with, we'll talk about emergency evacuation. In the case of an emergency evacuation, an alarm may sound, and everyone should exit by these two doors down either set of steps, and whichever door you can get out, please do so. Do not use the elevator. Once you've got down to the main floor, remove yourself from the building, get away from it. Any questions you have? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the roll call.
Larry Chesney.
Here.
Joe Everett.
Here.
Stanley Hedrick.
Here.
Brian King.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any changes that any of the committee members want to make? Or do I hear a motion to approve them as written?
Motion to approve.
Stanley, motion. Second? Joe, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda, I want to explain the process. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight, and each of you had the opportunity to find an agenda over on the table. We'll take them in the order that they're on the agenda, unless one of the committee members wants to make a change. Do any of you want to make a change? You okay with the order that they're in? We'll call each item. Thomas then will give a very short, brief summary of that variance request. Then anyone that's in favor of that request will come forward to the microphone, and you give us your name, and then we'll have a discussion about your request. And then we'll give anyone that's in opposition to that request an opportunity to speak, if there is one. And then we'll have a discussion about that. And then the committee members will have a discussion and then make a decision one way or the other. Okay. The first item on the agenda tonight is a variance to the reduction in required front setback by Joshua Ward on Big Springs Road in Maryville. Thomas?
Thank you, sir. So this variance request is the result of a garage addition that was recently constructed. Zoning would require a 30-foot setback from the edge of the right-of-way or easement, whichever's there. In this case, it's right-of-way. And this is a sort of an unusual circumstance because the right-of-way flares out quite a bit going on to Big Springs, so there's a very wide right-of-way there. And the front setback, which is that 30 setback, applies to 2 sides, so it was a corner lot. After the addition was completed, the final survey actually revealed that the corner of the garage had actually encroached just a little bit into that setback, actually by 1.7 feet at the furthest point that it extends into it. So the applicant is requesting a variance to resolve that encroachment issue so that they're able to maintain clear title on the structure. And also it should be noted that an approved variance would allow no further encroachment into the setback. It only covers that's already been put in there.
Anyone here in favor of this request? So there's no one here in favor of this variance request. Okay, I have a question. The concrete block wall, where does it fit on this drawing?
It would be roughly between, if you can see, it follows this curve here.
Yes.
So it's in this vicinity.
Well, it looks like it's maybe 10 feet off the road.
Yeah, I think it varies from the edge of the road. And that's one of the tricky things with front setbacks. Our regulations require that setbacks be from the edge of the right-of-way. And a lot of times we have wide right-of-ways, but the road doesn't necessarily fall right in the middle of it or even come up to the edge of it. So it's difficult to accurately visualize sometimes where where the right-of-way is if you're trying to base it off the edge of pavement or center line of the road or those sorts of things.
I mean,
And if I may, sir, the applicant, Josh Ward, was unable to attend tonight. He's actually out of town, so. But he asked that we go ahead and proceed if you're willing.
yeah, the location of the house is far away from the road.
Yes, sir.
It's the wall, so they don't need a variance for the wall.
No, sir. It's just for that, the garage that they've added on there. They remodeled the house, and that garage is sticking out. Again, the house itself is way more than 30 feet from the edge of the pavement. It's that our setback requirements is 30 foot off the edge of the right-of-way, and the road doesn't even come close to filling up the right-of-way.
Okay. Any questions? Comments? Concerns?
I talked to Mr. Hedrick today at the county, and he said as far as the county goes, this is no problem on the setback, because that's way more than the county would ever need.
You gonna punt, or you gonna make a motion?
Make a motion to accept.
Brian makes a motion to accept. Second? Joe, second. Roll call. The vote is yes to approve.
Joe Everett,
Yes.
Stanley Hedrick,
Yes.
Brian King,
Yes.
Larry Chesney.
Yes. Motion, variance is granted. The next item on the agenda is the multiple setbacks by Randy Daniels at Kildee Street in Townsend.
Thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. So this is one we've been bouncing around for a few months, and we finally have all our ducks in a row, I believe. So just to refresh your memory, this started out with a building permit application for a cover to go over RV in Big Valley. And to get that, actually it started, we realized we needed a variance request, and then we had to re-advertise. When the process of all that, this board directed staff to have them have a survey prepared so that we could make sure that it was on their property, which isn't always the case in Big Valley, I'm finding out. So through the course of doing that, he saw an opportunity and was able to work with the neighbor to the rear to actually do a lot line adjustment instead of just the survey. Worked out well for all of them, and they were able to manipulate the line so that it passes right between them, right between the two structures. That's left with a zero lot line, you know, but that's better than what the situation was prior, which is both of them were hanging over each other's property. So the plat to adjust that lot line was approved by the Planning Commission last week, and so now we're back to square one with this variance. He still needs the variance to be able to construct the roof structure that's still tight. But the variance now would be to reduce the rear setback to 0, and the side setback would need to go from 5 feet to just about 3 feet to be able to allow the structure, the supporting structure, to go up. The required front setback on platted campground lots is 15 feet from the edge of pavement. There's no request to vary that. That will still be maintained.
Anyone here in favor of this request? Step forward, please. And give us your name. I'm sorry?
Randy Daniels.
Randy Daniels, okay. Randy, do you have anything further to add?
No, I think he's covered it well. It's, like he said, it's taken us a while, but we've improved the process, or everything for myself, my neighbor as well, by changing that plat line.
Any questions for Randy? Okay, thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Anyone here opposed to this request? Okay. Questions?
Move its approval.
Stanley makes a motion to approve. Brian seconds. Roll call, please.
Joe Everett,
Yes.
Stanley Hedrick,
Yes.
Brian King,
Yes.
Larry Chesney.
Yes. Motion is, your request is approved. The third item for tonight is a minimum lot size setback requirement for subdivision on River Sledge Road in Louisville.
Thank you, sir. Now, this one's a little more complicated. Just because of the nature of the request, it's more of a, I think the best way to put it is more of sort of a blanket request, and I'll try to explain why, and I think between the applicant, the Henrys are here this evening, they'll be able to explain their case, and we also have Mr. Ferguson with Environmental Health if we need any specific questions answered, technical questions as far as the septic system is concerned. But in a nutshell here, the applicants are requesting a variance from several sections of our zoning regulations, with the overarching goal being to subdivide a portion of their property, basically to carve off a duplex that's already there. So the existing lot now has the house, and then there's a duplex on it as well. So they started this process with the city of Alcoa, since this is in their planning region, which means that the city of Alcoa has ultimate subdivision authority over this property. And they've been around with them a few times, and the end result there, and I think kind of where they've left it with Alcoa so far, they went before Alcoa's BZA to request a variance on their subdivision regulations, and ultimately that variance was denied by Alcoa's BZA. But then, the way I understand it anyway, Alcoa has agreed now to at least consider the subdivision, quote, if the county is okay with it. And the best way that we thought of to, if the county is okay with it, to sort of legitimize that is to go through the process here and have this board approve variances to these various different sections of our zoning regulations that could be impacted if this was carved off. And so just the few things that we saw, number one, minimum lot size. In the suburbanizing zone, the minimum lot size, if they were created today, for something served by a private septic system, is 30,000 square feet. And there's been various iterations of possible subdivision. Some met that, some didn't. And those, have been back and forth. Mr. Ferguson, as well as Alcoa staff, have gone around with that. And I think there had been a couple of different solutions that were agreeable, wouldn't have required any of this, couple of different solutions that both Mr. Ferguson and Alcoa were amenable to, but the Henrys weren't. And their assertion is that if you subdivide the property in such a way that it takes away the front yard, takes the front yard of the house and puts it on another piece of property, that's going to negatively impact their property value. So bear that in mind, and again, I'm sure they'll speak to that in a moment. So you had minimum lot size variance request. We have a density issue because by our zoning regulations, if you have 2 units served by septic, then you have to have at least 1.67 acres, because you're allowed 1.2 units per acre. That calculates up to 1.67 acres or above to have 2 units, which a duplex is. And thirdly, the setbacks. I think in the Henry's preferred configuration to subdivide, the setbacks could be impacted. We require a front yard setback off of access easements, which we talked about a few minutes ago. So those are a few of the things to consider. Should this board be inclined to approve variance, sort of this blanket variance request, there's a few things to keep in mind. One, in my opinion, if the city of Alcoa does not ultimately approve the subdivision, this is all null and void anyway. It doesn't need to exist and wouldn't exist. So just to make sure that that's put in the conditions of the approval. And also that any future expansions or redevelopment of these structures or on his property would be subject to additional review and approval. You know, if they were to expand beyond this sort of blanket setback variance, it would need to come back before this board. Also ask that prior to consideration by the City of Alcoa, any plat for subdivision would have to be prepared to the satisfaction of Blount County Planning and Development, especially with regards to on or off-site septic disposal. There's the possibility that they may be able to do this in an easement as far as the septic system. And I mentioned that already. If Alcoa were to deny this, then this becomes null and void. So that's what I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions we may have. And again, Mr. Ferguson's here if we have questions about the septic system.
Before we ask the owners to come forward, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Clarification. If you look at this overhead view,
Yes, sir.
that's the one I'm referring to. As you pull in the driveway, the duplex is on the right. It looks like it's 4811, correct?
Yes, sir.
Then the house is 4809.
Yes, sir.
And you're saying the septic for both structures is between 4809 and the lake.
Correct.
And the property lines are the small orange line over next to 4821, and then on the left, there's a little sliver of land that 4809 doesn't own because another property is there. So their lake access is to the back of the rear of the house, not to the left side.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the property that they own is between those two orange
Yeah.
parallel lines.
Yes, sir. The orange lines are the lot lines.
Okay, so they own the land to the right of 4811,
Yes, sir.
behind the duplex.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone here in favor of this request?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Terry Ferguson, Director of Environmental Health of the county. And I'd like to kind of clarify from a health department perspective concerning the minimum lot size, if I may. And I need to show you guys something. Maybe I can make it a little clearer. When this is one piece of property, obviously the homeowner has the, you know, he can decide where, what drain field goes where. Believe it or not, on this piece of property, the septic system for the duplex is in the blue. The septic system for the house is in the blue also. There's a little sliver here where we had to repair the house at one time. So the orange is basically the reserve for these two structures, when and if they need repairs. Obviously, someday when they get public sewer, it doesn't mean anything. But from a health department perspective, it really doesn't matter if it's not the minimum lot size or not, as long as these areas have to stay on the plat. And they can't be disturbed, regardless of who owns what. I mean, you could make the orange part of this structure, but the house still has access to that property. You can't do anything with it. It's not making, if you agree with the minimum lot size being reduced, it's not making a bad situation worse. I mean, these come about, you know, one or two a year like this, and it's always a situation where they were one piece of property at one time, and people try to divide those. I'm just saying, from my point of view, it doesn't matter to the health department as long as these areas are shaded and are referenced that, hey, this is the existing for the two structures, and the orange is the reserve for the two structures. And in all due respect to Mr. Henry, Alcoa approved the similar situation with a piece of property in 2010. I approved it the same way. I think the structures were, the three structures were approved on a lot size of around 18,000 square feet. But the disposal field was to another area, and it was around, I think, 20,000 square feet. And the same purpose was, you can't use it.
Several years, I think Joe's aware of this, several years ago, we had to make that lot size 30,000. And it would encompass that, there was no such thing as an easement encroachment. We had to configure the lot size around the drain fields, and it's kind of a headache to do that. It's, like I said, I don't really care as long as these are designated. Whoever buys this structure knows they can't do anything here, and whoever buys this structure, they can't do anything there. So, Mr. Cunningham, when he became mayor, he said, hey, I believe in easement encroachments. If we do not want to make a property line around those, you have a problem with it. And I said, no, the law allows an easement encroachment. So we've been doing this for several years. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the question I have is, if you look behind the duplexes,
Yeah.
where it says common area,
Yeah.
you got yellow there.
Yeah.
Is that not suitable for the
No,
duplexes?
here, I'm glad you asked that. You see this right here? Here's the 822 common.
Oh, my.
The agreement we have with TVA is that we can't go below the 820. So none of this is any good for septic. So even though you see right here, we've encroached on it just a little, but not that much. And the same thing here, we may not be able to use all of this. So that's all I can deal with right there, really.
So that lot,
This is no good. I mean, he
Yeah.
could increase, from my perspective, he could take that into consideration and trying to reach a minimum lot size, but it doesn't matter to the health department.
so the lot to the left of there, they can't put anything on it as far as septic.
No, I mean.
No, go down, go down, go
It'll be
down.
to the left of the lot,
Go down.
Yeah.
No, down.
the next lot.
Right.
That lot, the
Oh,
next
yeah.
lot.
No. This lot right in through here.
Oh, yeah.
See that little sliver right
Yeah,
there?
right, yeah, no.
You're saying they can't put anything there.
No, he can't put anything there. No, you're right.
So it wouldn't help him to buy that. And,
Go fishing.
no.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of area here, but from a wastewater standpoint, I can't use it.
Yeah.
So then, if a person wants to, reduce the minimum lot size, as long as the planning commission agrees to that, and Board of Zoning, it doesn't matter to me, but, that's another decision by this board and the city of Alcoa, what they want to do with minimum lot size. And I express the same thing to Ms. Handy, that, hey, we don't care in this situation. I mean, there's certain situations minimum lot size is not applicable as far as meeting wastewater requirements, because there's nothing else that we can do with it.
How close is the sewer?
Across the railroad tracks, it could be a rock's throw would be years, but,
Right.
I would say 10 years, probably public sewer. And then, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here in favor of this request wants to speak?
Gary did a good job of explaining this.
Your name, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Larry Henry.
Okay.
My desire to sell the two townhouses, the drain field and the backup area for the two townhouses are in back of the house at present. I can dedicate some of that property and a lot of the property over there where the townhouses are with the sale of the property. I would also include a, what do you call it? Easement into the front yard if they ever need the front yard in case the backyard fails. All we want to do is sell the two townhouses, and I've been denied that by Alcoa. And I'd appreciate you considering me. Any questions? You understand what I'm talking about?
How many acres do you own there? How big's your lot size?
I would guess an acre and a half, the whole thing.
Did you build the townhouses?
I built those two townhouses, and I built the three next door, added onto the house. I used to be a builder. I'm now a real estate broker.
Do you live in the house?
Yes, sir.
What's this other part of green? What does it have to do with this property?
If I may, sir, that's the Mr. Ferguson referenced the triplex that was sold many years ago.
Okay.
Mr. Henry built that, and he's showing that Alcoa allowed that to be subdivided in 2010, somewhere in that
Yeah, that
neighborhood.
was roughly 18,000 square feet that went with it, land-wise. This will be roughly 4/10 of an acre, what we're talking about. And Alcoa kept telling me, well, you have to sell the front yard with it. If I do that, it's going to damage the value of the house. And whenever I sell that, when I die and my heirs sell it or whatever they do with it. So I can't sell the front yard. That's illogical.
So you're wanting to block it off and have a 19,000 square foot lot? The townhouse. You want the townhouse to be on 19,000 square feet?
Roughly, yes, roughly that. And I can give an easement into the front yard if they ever need that. That goes with the sale of the property.
How would that be marked off on this map?
For the septic system?
No, for the size, for the lot size of the townhouse.
Roughly, the lot that he would want to create would follow, I guess its southwestern boundary would follow the edge of the driveway, all right? So the property line would be right on the edge of the driveway, kind of follow the driveway back, and then go down the side of the house. More or less what he has highlighted, on this Exhibit D that he provided. This yellow area is more or less what he wants to subdivide. With the hashed out areas in, the hashed out area in red on the front would be an easement over the other property. Yes, sir.
So is that lot being more over the lake?
It would, yes, sir. It will, back to his, yeah, because the shoreline's just about here.
So here's the setback
Okay,
then
so
from the
this right
driveway,
here.
what will be 5 feet?
Yes, sir, probably about 5 feet.
But if the driveway comes back to this house?
Yes.
And the lot line would go right back through there?
Along the driveway?
Along the driveway, and the house, the duplex sits within 5 feet of the driveway.
I see.
So that one setback would be 5 feet. Yes, yes.
Well,
You're right. Somebody might not do that. But he's completing from that TVA line.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
well, right here, he has number 7, right? He owns number 7. And he owns all the way to the lake, right?
I don't see number 7.
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7.
5, 6, and 7. Yeah, I mean, right there. 5, 6, and 7.
To clarify, no, he does not own lot number 7. It was deeded off to your neighbor. Remember the discussion we had early on?
Oh, that piece behind the townhouses?
Yeah, the piece that would be the next lot up the road that used to be part of y'all's, and you deeded it to
My-
that guy
my
that
father
built the
sold that some
boat-
years ago.
boat dock, yeah,
So we own 6 then.
Okay,
correct.
so this is not correct. That lot line off, it's actually back up closer to the house now.
That lot line is closer
I'm
to
trying
the
to figure
distance.
out,
Yeah, I agree with you, because that doesn't look the same.
No, it's not the
You're
same.
showing a lot line over here, and you look how close it is right here.
Mr. Henry, it might be good if you could come up and
You're right. Because this line 7 goes right up to that house. Right. It's over here. So that lot line is over here someplace.
Is this the line that we're looking at right here, that's existing?
Mark his lot line.
yeah.
What he's saying is that lot line actually goes right down through here. It's not that lot line. It's over here.
So it's about
Okay, that's what you sold.
Yes, roughly there.
Okay,
And
now,
this has been sold off.
okay, what about this right here? This is your lot line. What about this property right here, right on down to the lake?
We could include that.
How much more footage would that allow?
I don't know, if I include this and and the property behind the house where the drain field and the backup is, I'm gonna be right at 4/10 or better than of an acre.
Yeah, but that right there falls in that 821.
But it's still property.
It's still there.
No, but
This was 39/100 for an acre right here.
his lot would probably meet our requirements, right? If we went all the way to the lake.
I'll be happy to go all over the lake, and there's also a boat dock down there that goes with the 2 townhouses.
See, that just make everything cleaner. If that would get him closer to a minimum lot size, right?
Yeah, it'd certainly be closer. I think Alcoa would be even more inclined to
And then they
approve
just
it then.
share the septic area. That's, the septic
I'll be
field,
happy to include that, and I can use the front yard. I can
This
pass
is right
an
here.
easement with the property here in case this ever fails back here.
are the septic fields in the same field?
Yes, sir. Well, the
Oh,
septic
hold-
field for the house is over here somewhere. But this is the septic field for the 2 townhouses.
What was he talking about? Both fields are back here.
I thought they were the same field.
I did too.
There's another field over.
Gary.
Which one?
This is the field for the house over.
Gary,
So, does the house use this field?
Only about a quarter of that field is used. The rest of it is, could be used for drainage.
The house and the condos, do they use the same field or does the house use a field?
They're separate.
Yeah, he's talking about going
They're in the
down,
same, they're in the same area, but they're separate, yeah. Okay.
yeah, he's talking about going on down the river, which I have no problem with.
How many feet would that make the lot size if he did that? If that's only 19,000 on what's green, he may get another 300 or 400 square feet there.
Yeah.
So that put it up to
Well,
maybe,
actually, the one over here, that 3,900 is an acre, it goes out in the river right there.
yeah, but I don't think
Yeah, I
we
know, that's. okay.
play on that.
There.
Yeah.
but the bottom line is, if you did that, the duplex septic field would not be on its property.
That's correct. And if you took this, the orange, and added it to the duplexes, it's still,
He has no backup.
yeah, I mean, he may have some property here, but this house, I have to repair it over here anyway.
Gary, can I ask a question here? Is there a provision in y'all's regulations that would allow him to pass an easement with the sale of that property so that this property still has access to that reserve area?
Yeah, that can be done.
Yeah, he's talking about these ones right there.
What,
Yeah, sure.
what, this marked off area right down
I'm
through
saying you
here.
don't necessarily have to have
What
it
is that?
on
That's
your
a septic.
property as long as you have
I don't know, that's something
Like
Gary
your
can
neighbor.
Drew, I think.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
agreement.
I agree with the greens, the greens.
But when you sold this, you'd have to give them easement to get to their
That's correct.
complete,
That'd have to be an easement.
Complete-
Here to get to that.
and to work on it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Not only get to it, but
Right.
dig it
Yeah, that
up.
all- Yeah,
And that is no problem. That will
He's
pass-
aware of that.
Yeah, I'm a real estate broker, that will pass with the 2 townhouses.
Yeah.
It runs with the land.
Yeah, what's this right here? Here's a reserve, is that reserved in through there too? This mark,
At this point,
that purple?
there is a
What is that?
mechanism to provide various
Well-
needs by, I guess, being creative with
Well,
the
what
deed.
I'm saying is that there's part of the drain field there, I just didn't include
Yeah.
blue for this house. There's part of it, and the rest of it's back here.
What I'm getting at, this little mark here, if, I'm trying to get to minimum lot size. Okay, he's drawn it in here not to include that. If he included it, it'd be closer to his house, but why couldn't you include that little part plus the part on, and add it to that? I know you don't want to because you live there and you don't want to give up no more than you have to.
Right. It can be done, it just matters.
So
It could be done if I have to, then push the thing right up against the house almost.
But that's not, it's not a hardship not to do that, it's a desire not to do it, but it's not a hardship not to do it.
That's correct.
The problem with that is the more property you take away from the town.
I'm sorry, would you step up to the mic, please? And your name?
I'm Judy.
You're Judy?
Now, my sister and brother and I all own the property together. The more property, like at first they wanted us to give half our front yard, all of the side yard, and into the backyard to the townhouses, which we figured, since it's lakefront property, we're going to lose anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 in value of land by taking it away from the house, because the townhouses are small we can't up the price of the townhouse enough to make that up. So it would really hurt us financially. So then it was suggested that maybe we could sell the house and the townhouses together. The problem is we aren't ready to move, and I've talked to a lot of real estate people, and Larry's been a lakefront specialist for 46 years. We've never heard of anybody that bought a house and 2 townhouses together on the lake. It's probably not a doable sale. So we sort of got ourselves backed into a corner, and we're trying to, with the 2 easements of our property, since easements go with the land, if we die, that easement is still attached to that property. It cannot be done away with. We were hoping that that would solve the situation. And because these properties were built in 1985, and you can't pick them up and move them and change them now. You're sort of, you know. And so we're trying to work this out the best way possible for everybody.
Our minimum lot size right now is how much?
Our minimum lot size would be 30,000.
30,000, and the green area there right now is 19,000.
Correct.
Now, I understand what they want to do, that you want the best of both, but whenever we're dividing it, that's not necessarily the way we do it. But if a person put on down to the lake, plus that marked in line here, that's on some of them,
Where's the
which would move it closer to the house, it would reduce the lot size for their house, but make the lot size for the duplexes larger and get closer. And that may not get it there either, but that can get it closer to meet the requirements.
But standard, the lot line now goes right down the driveway, which is within 5 feet of the duplex.
Well, I'm talking about, here's a driveway in
Yes.
front of, what about this line where it's got a neck down here?
Yeah.
Now that'd give you more room to, what about that? And this all the way to the lake to get this lot size on up.
So you're saying take the pink and you include it,
Yeah.
take the green from the left.
Yeah, and granted, it would make it closer to their house and reduce their lot size, but, you know,
Okay, so that addresses the minimum lot size.
right.
Still has the issue of setback to the driveway, and still has the issue of the septic field being on somebody else's property.
Well, if Gary says a septic field could work, ain't no problem with that. The setback to the driveway, I have more concern with the lot size than I do.
So if I may, real quick, if you look at Exhibit C that we've put in here, this was one of the first attempts to carve this up, and that had actually met with approval, preliminary approval from Mr. Ferguson and with the city of Alcoa. Now, if you look at this configuration, the side in the back does what you're asking for. So it takes it down, and this reflects what they actually, this is the actual tract of land, okay? The tax maps are a little off. They're including Lot 7, which they do not have, okay? So if you look at this, and if you include this back part, plus they're coming all the way over into the front yard, that configuration would have been a 30,000 square foot lot. So not including the front yard isn't going to get you to 30,000. It's certainly going to be closer than what we're looking at, you know, as far as the, you know, the green on here, but it's still not going to be 30,000. So they would still need a variance on the minimum lot size. Density, they need a variance on density because a duplex would actually require 1 2/3 acres, you know, by our density requirements. And they'd need setback variance because you'd be creating a lot. When you drew that lot line, you would then have a nonconformity on the setbacks. Yes, sir. And there was one other thing, I don't know if I said this, but I meant to. I know that I said that if Alcoa doesn't approve this, then this would be null and void, but I also want to make it clear that if you all were to approve this, it in by no way, shape, or form guarantees that Alcoa will approve it. That this is just, you know, an attempt to sort of bolster the argument that, yeah, the county's okay with it. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Why did Alcoa not go with this with the 30,000 foot? Because of the septic?
Nope. Alcoa agreed to this.
To this?
They were going to do this, but the Henrys didn't want to do this because it put the front yard of the house on the same lot as the duplex. Alcoa staff agreed to this, but it wasn't amenable to the Henrys.
I tend to agree with Alcoa.
Well, let's make sure we understand what you just said. What you said was that if they include the front lawn with the duplexes, then they meet the minimum density. No?
They wouldn't meet density. They would meet minimum lot size by zoning.
Okay.
They still wouldn't meet density because our regulations say you've got to have 1 2/3 acres to have 2 units.
Okay, so they meet lot size. Then it still does not meet density.
Correct.
They do or do not meet setbacks.
Let me try to scale this off real quick to see. Yeah, I think their front off of River's Edge, I think they're comply with the 30-foot setback requirement today. It would be if that line was drawn up the driveway that would create the setback issue, potential setback issue, whether you treated it as a side yard, which is 10 foot, or you treat it as a front yard off of a access easement, which then is 30 feet. Either way, they wouldn't be able to meet that.
Is the front yard on the driveway easement or on the other side of the house?
So their current front yard is off of River's Edge, which is,
Okay.
they meet that. But if they drew that new line, a driveway easement becomes a front as well. So there would be 30 feet there too. But what I'm saying is, even if we didn't treat the easement as a front, even if we treated it as a side, if they were creating a side yard, there still wouldn't be 10 feet between the building and the new property line.
But if you put the front lawn in with the duplexes, then the house has to have an easement for the driveway,
Correct.
because that property then belongs to the duplex.
That's correct.
So then you have a house with an easement back to it.
Correct.
And you said that would create a side setback for the duplex as drawn?
Typically, we treat the yard that faces an easement, an access easement, as a front yard as well. So it's a corner. Yeah, that's how it's typically handled, because the zoning regulations say front yard is to be applied to any right-of-way or easement line.
Joe, say that again. Explain what you
By
just said.
doing this configuration, they still have a setback issue here.
Why? They own it. These folks will have an easement down through here, but they don't have a setback from the easement. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, it would actually create a setback easement, in my opinion. A setback issue.
Create a setback issue for the duplex.
Correct.
Because you've given them an easement.
By recording a driveway easement, it would create a setback issue.
They still have a setback issue.
Yes, sir. And a density issue. The configuration that includes the front yard on the same parcel or lot as the duplex still has variance issue, still has setback issue, still has density issue. The only thing it takes care of is the minimum lot size requirement.
What would happen if those two duplexes burned to the ground, they wasn't there anymore, as far as developing it into a place for another house to be built?
If they were to burn down,
You can
So
build back.
the way the regulations are stated, if it is by no fault of the owner, so if it's a natural calamity or, act of God, whatever, they are allowed to replace it within 1 year. And
But
so,
what would happen if they did that, or if something like that happened and you didn't want to build a duplex back, but you want to build a house? Would you have to build it back on the same footprint of the duplexes?
it would have to go back same.
Would it not, wouldn't be room to build another one nowhere, would it?
Yeah, well, they actually could go back exactly with a duplex, exactly in the same footprint. If they wanted to do a house, arguably the impact is less because it's 1 unit instead of 2. It would still need to be in the same footprint.
But still got the issue of the septic field not being on the property.
Correct. But Mr. Ferguson confirmed that we do allow off-site septic and off-site repair as long as it's covered, platted in an easement, a recorded easement, and the deed.
Yeah,
conveys.
if you had a common septic field area, and if both were using that same septic field, and it quit operating, who has to pay to fix it?
Who has to pay to fix it?
Yeah,
It'd be
it'd have to be split. One if one said, I ain't gonna pay for it.
yeah, I mean, it can be a problem. Usually, if the drain field for the house fails, then that person would have to fix it in that area. That's what we would want.
If it was separate drain fields,
Yeah,
but
they're separate drain fields, right?
Oh, okay. Well, same deal, what, if the person that owns that property, but the other one has an easement for your septic field on it, so you go in and your septic field fails and you fix it, and you just, okay, it's a worker now, and you just leave it all rough, and you don't fix it back nice and neat,
It could be a problem.
it can be a problem.
Absolutely.
I don't like shared stuff.
And there's situations where if part of the easement is on that particular piece of property, we've had to go out and stop people from planting trees and everything. So, it's not the best case situation.
You're going to run into the regulatory requirements from the county, as far as what is required as far as maintaining and not messing with it and repairing it and all that. But I think you're also going to run into possible, a lot like what you're talking about, if somebody fixes it, but it's on somebody else's property, I think you're going to run into the potential for some civil issues there
Yeah,
too.
because they're not gonna own it forever.
Correct.
But the value of a house on the lake, and somebody else has access to your property between you and the lake, that, to me,
You really don't own it.
Huh?
You really don't own it.
You might own the land, but you don't have the right to tell somebody not to come on and start digging a backhoe.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to make a point. The 3 townhouses across the cove from us, we sold those. The house over there had belonged to my aunt. We inherited it. Eventually sold that house for my mother to have some money. My brother built the 3 townhouses over there, and their septic has an easement into the front yard of that house. And there has been a repair done before, and we took care of all the repairs. Now we sold those townhouses, and there is a landlord that has come in and remodeled everything, has taken care of everything, and we've never had an issue with having to repair anything. It's just been known that it had to be taken care of. So we haven't had that problem in the past, and I don't know, unless somebody awful showed up, I can't imagine not wanting to fix it correctly.
I think their point. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but you never really know. And I think this is the concern is you never really know. And if somebody has an easement for anything, whatever the bounds of that easement are, like in this case for the septic repair area for the septic field itself, those other people do have the right to come on there and use it or repair it or whatever.
Right.
And so, you know, correct.
I was going to show you what she's referencing. That was approved in 2010. Here's 3 units. And this is the disposal field, which belongs to this property here. And that's what the city of Alcoa approved. And I guess what we're trying to debate. Yeah, there's a house here. What we're trying to debate, do we go, you take that lot, come down and get some area, but they chose not to do that in 2010. I'm just saying it's not a good situation either. We have had to repair these yet, but it belongs to these people here. Same thing. See that's there? But anyway.
And if we took the time machine back to the 80s when all this stuff was built, of course, there was no county zoning. So at that time, it was, well, it still is in Alcoa's planning region. So they handled it. You probably built without permit, right? Were there any sort of permits at all required back then when you did this?
That's been so long ago. I think my father took care of all that in the 80s.
Yeah. Probably not any permits of any kind required back then, and you know the county didn't do the septic tanks in the 80s either. So,
Yeah, we did.
oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
They had the wastewater permit.
Okay, that was before the state and then before the county again, or?
Yeah, the state had it up until 95.
Okay. Okay,
But the state required wastewater.
gotcha. So,
Anyone here opposed to this request? Point of order.
Okay, guys. Any other questions, comments? I just don't see this as a good situation to create. Granted, given your comments on the other one that you've done, and it's worked and served well enough to this point for you. As you, Mr. Henry, pointed out early on, all these things run with the land. So after you are no longer the owner, then the situation will still be in existence. And who knows what will happen at that point. And doing things like this, while we don't set precedents as this body, if we make a habit of doing things that are counter to our regulatory plan that we have in place, it does not really bode well for us. So I'm inclined to...
Well, that said, if I can't get a variance, I can't sell it. And if I do sell it, if the backyard fails, I would write into the contract and the sales papers that they would have access to the front yard, regardless of who owns it at that time.
Yeah.
And they'd go in and, you know, do their drain field business and then cover it back up and make the yard pretty like it was.
Well, I understand that
So,
you're more than willing.
I'm stuck.
to use,
If I can't sell it, what am I going to do with it?
I don't know.
Well, let me make a comment here, because this is part of our retirement plan, and what's happening is, if we can't get this approval, we can't sell our property. We can't sell all of it together because nobody's going to buy all of that. If we can't separate it out, we can't sell it there. So we're just stuck, and you've got us in a situation where we own property, we don't have the right to sell it. And, you know, this is going back to 1985. We can't change everything to meet what it is today. We're trying to make allowances and easements and, you know, make this possible for this to work, but we're backed into a corner. And we need to sell our property. It's that simple. So I don't know, it's been done before, and on top of that, the sewer line is just, how many yards? I don't even know. I don't know how to judge yards.
100 yards away, at least it would cost a small fortune to run it down there.
But they will eventually, because they're going to keep building over there. So, you know, it's, everybody talks about how much it'll cost, but if you're going to provide sewer for one part of the county, you need to provide it for all of the county. So, I don't know how to fix this if we can't sell the townhouses. I'm just, because, I mean, I've talked to owners of real estate firms, and they say you can't sell 3 dwellings on the lake together as one parcel because you would have to have, you know, we just don't ever see anybody that wants that. So we've lost the right to sell our own property.
How much you want for it?
Well, if you have, if you want a contract, I'll sign it for you.
Well, it depends on.
You got, the townhouses are going to be about $160 apiece, and then the house itself is probably around $7. So you add all that together, and you're getting up there, and you know, there's properties that are more expensive than that are sold on the lake, but they're usually one home instead of 3. And the townhouses are just 2 bedrooms, so as you put them together, it's still a 4-bedroom unit, basically. So it's not like it's an excessive amount of people in there.
You know, we had another deal like this back some months ago out on Ellejoy Road. There's a parcel out there, and they wanted to divide it up for various reasons, and all of them would come out being non-conforming parcels. And it was good for them if we would have done it, but it wasn't in keeping with the county's regulations.
I remember it.
And this is sort of a similar, I understand what they want to do. I'd want to do it too. But they're in a situation that we didn't create, and we may not be able to solve it for them.
Just talking out loud, if these townhouses become a house, and then you got 2 dwellings on this property, as the way it is right now, there's 3 dwellings, right? Okay, so if the townhomes become 1, does that change anything? Does that do anything for them as far as being able to sell, or doesn't affect the septic? Still the septic? I mean, or no?
Well, the septic, correct me if I'm wrong, is based on the number of bedrooms, so it'd be the same size or whatever. I think the issue for the Henrys is the configuration of the lots. And I don't think if it was 1 unit or 30 units, the repair area for the septic system is still going to be in that front yard. So
My question to Mr. Henry would be this: have you checked to see what it would cost to tie onto sewer? You said it'd be a small fortune. Would that not be a better avenue versus you know, we're sitting here with nothing. Well, if you spend some money to tie into this, if it's $40,000, I mean, to me, that makes sense to look to do something like that. You've got something to work with then, because you're locked right now. Does that fix your problem? What do you think, Gary?
It's not a foreseeable future. You know, I agree. I mean, that solved a lot of your problems, but sewer's just not available.
They can't pump it?
Pardon?
They can't pump it?
No, sir.
How far is it?
Well, we have to go over, under the railroad tracks. I mean, it's just, I didn't get an estimate if I could do that, but I didn't get an estimate from the city. They say it's not feasible.
Dang on that.
Go down that railroad track and get all the easements, do that.
Yeah, your railroad would be your bigger problem there.
You may have to find a buyer that wants a guest house or has some children that have moved back home.
I'm sorry.
You may have to find a buyer that wants a guest house or somebody whose children are moving back home.
Oh, well, that's a possibility.
I mean,
But I'd rather sell these darn things and get shut of them.
yeah, I understand.
Already lost 2 sales, and I've got a lady and her daughter that want to buy now. That would be the 3rd one we lost because we've been tied up in this stuff for months.
It's up to you guys.
I'll move to deny.
Joe makes a motion to deny. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Stanley seconds. The yes vote means to deny, correct?
Joe,
Is it in writing in this regulation that if you break off a piece of property, it's in writing that new configuration has to be, it becomes retroactive? Or is that just the way an assumption has to be made?
What do you, retroactive? Ain't no retroactive.
So, everyone's subdivision regulations, which is, as we've discussed, you are subject to the City of Alcoa's subdivision regulations. All of them require new lots that are being created to be standard, which means they have to meet all the standards on the books at that time. And that's the minimum lot size and all that stuff. So that is in all the regulations, ma'am.
Does that mean the building or just anything in existence?
No, that would mean, you know, you wouldn't create a lot that by its creation would cause nonconformities to zoning. Usually you're not carving off a lot that is developed, but if you are, it should be carved off in such a way that it doesn't create zoning nonconformities, which is does that answer your question?
Okay, roll call.
Joe Everett,
A yes means we are denying.
Yes.
Stanley Hedrick,
Yes.
Brian King,
Yes.
Larry Chesney.
Yes. I'm sorry, but your request is denied. Any other business that any of you gentlemen have for us tonight? Thomas, anything you have for us?
Just a couple of little housekeeping things here. I think Marlene sent this to y'all, a training opportunity next week in Knoxville. If you want to do it, you need to RSVP back to the provider. I went to the last one they did a month or so ago, and it was actually good, so.
What about the 3-hour video?
Got that here too. So this is the link to it if you want to do this. It is land use, so it takes care of that requirement. It is an online thing that you can do at your own pace. I did it. I did this one a couple years ago myself, and it's pretty good.
So you just watch it, and after you watch it to a allotted time, it gives you a certificate and says you done
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I can't remember if it gives you a certificate or they just email you something. But you watch, you know, and you have to click along to each section. I think that's how they make sure you're awake. But yeah, it's pretty good. And they have a lot of other ones on here besides just this one. But this one checks both those boxes where it's a.
Can you stop it and go take a potty break?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can come back to it.
Can
So,
you stop it and come back?
yep. You just keep clicking along through the different sections. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Or you want to go ahead and close first? No.
Go ahead.
Well, it's not relative to.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. Motion adjourned.